Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in Magic Webinar land. Welcome to today's broadcast. My name is Glenn Johnson. I'm a Senior Vice President here at Magic Software Americas, and I'm joined today by Ted Brennan, a Senior Consultant at Magic Software Americas. Good morning, Ted.
Good morning, Glenn, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone who's listening and watching wherever you may be.
Fantastic, and thanks for joining us, each and every one. We do appreciate it. Today's webinar is Integrate Your Salesforce to Oracle ERP. We're going to be doing a live demonstration in today's webinar of Salesforce and Oracle ERP integration. Specifically, we'll be showing JD Edwards as the example. We don't have time to show everything, and we'll be happy to talk with you one-on-one about your specific ERP systems, of course, at any time. We will also make opportunity for questions in today's webinar format. So the way we would like to handle that is to invite you to enter your questions at any time as we're going through today's broadcast into the chat box, send them to the host and presenter, and then at the conclusion of the formal presentation, we'll go ahead and take those questions. So just a few preliminary items before we get right into the topic. Obviously, today's webinar is about how you connect and interface and relate Oracle ERP systems with Salesforce. And Magic Software has Oracle Validated Integration for JD Edwards Enterprise 1. We also previously achieved Oracle Validated Integration for JD Edwards World. We are App Exchange certified with Salesforce. We're an Oracle Platinum partner. So we have literally, hundreds, maybe thousands of customers that are doing all of this. So a lot of experience here. Just some basic definitions as we go into today's webinar. ERP obviously stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. Oracle provides 3 of the world's Tier 1 ERP systems. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management, and Salesforce, of course, is the world's leading CRM system. So Oracle is offering JD Edwards, as we mentioned, PeopleSoft Enterprise, and Oracle eBusiness Suite. And more recently, Oracle Cloud, which really emerged from what has been called Fusion or Oracle Fusion. And these are all ERP solutions offered by Oracle. And as I mentioned, 3 of those would be regarded within the industry as Tier 1 ERP systems on a list of 4 Tier 1 ERP systems. So most of you probably can guess what the other one is. But we won't be talking about that one today. Hybrid cloud integration then is the idea of connecting those on-premise ERP systems, for the most part, with a CRM system that's based in the cloud, or any kind of cloud-to-ground integration is considered hybrid cloud integration, and so that's that need to span those systems, and that is specifically the type of demonstration we'll be doing today as well. So let's talk about this whole idea of ERP and CRM integration. Many people have really put it in a data integration kind of context, and in some respects this is a mythical battle, where you're out there to slay the data dragon, as if information is the enemy and it must be overcome. And I think a more realistic way is to realize that customers are really what we're trying to work with, and customers are not data. They're much more than data. They have real experiences, emotions, feelings, and our systems need to be designed to deliver that digital experience, and that is why so many businesses today are going through what we call digital transformation. But some are left in kind of a bunker mentality. No, it's just about data, and as long as the data is integrated and we have our batch processes, we're happy. But customers live in a real world that is comprised of social media, user experiences, real-time interaction with software and websites and mobile devices, and they expect things in real time. And so that bunker mentality is really not serving the enterprises well that are sticking to the old ways of doing things. When we talk about the customer journey and the customer experience, there are a couple of ways of looking at it. One is as a business-to-consumer model, where typically that experience is one where customers will consider, evaluate, and buy. They experience the product, they advocate for it, they bond to the brand and the product. This is a typical customer journey cycle, as the analysts for McKinsey and others would position it. And then as you look at the B2B customer decision journey, it's similar in that they go through similar process, identifying, researching, considering, and evaluating. But sometimes there are more formal processes around what is essentially a journey that includes these emotional experiences, where they then buy after the formal RFP process, or a more formal consideration at least. They use and service, and then that loyalty does come in, that bonding to the brand, to the product. It's a part of that customer journey. And our CRM systems are trying to create and improve that customer journey, trying to provide information to our employees to better interact with our customers, but they're also trying to provide the improved customer experience itself, so that our customer-facing systems are interacting in a way. And that may require integration. That may require that traditional enterprise data that is stored in the system of record known as the ERP system, which says financial and accounting information and all sorts of things related to manufacturing processes and logistics and other aspects of the business, need to be revealed and shared with the customer in a transparent customer relationship. So it's important to remember then that customer data itself does not equate to the customer experience. They're in many respects flip sides of the same coin, but it's important for us as we're doing a customer journey exercise to identify the key parts of that journey, to know where it is that our customers are at any given moment in their experience and where it is that they want to go. Understand how we're doing as an organization, how your organization is performing in delivering that customer experience, and how your IT systems can be better aligned to improve upon that customer experience. How you can build cross-functional processes, not simply the experience of the accountant in the ERP system. That's a standalone system, and then you have a standalone system for sales and marketing, and you've got a standalone system for manufacturing, and a standalone system for the warehouse and logistics, but rather look at it from the customer's point of view, where they need that process to be smooth flowing and continuous, and for there to be no gaps in their experience. And integration is really key to bridging those gaps, of course. And so we need to implement cultural change around these cross-functional processes, so that all of the players within our organization, all of our knowledge workers and employees, begin to see that continuous process of serving the customer's needs and enhancing their experience as their job priority and what they really do. I don't just keep books and journals. I'm actually keeping books and journals that are a part of my customer's experience. And it's important to kind of work on that mindset across the organization. So the real customer journey involves customers are engaged in things like shopping and buying and paying for products and learning about those products, using them, maybe fixing them, repairing them. At some point, maybe they dispose of them, sell them, replace them with new products. That's the real customer journey. Those are the things your customer does. But we don't have systems that we label with these same words. We tend to look at the customer journey from our perspective within the enterprise. And so those systems might be e-commerce systems that have e-commerce data, and there's point of sale data and ERP data and so on that actually relates to the types of systems that are being used, and the data can get left behind in silos. Processes and systems overlap. So shopping and selling and buying, delivering and supplying and servicing activities take place across a wide variety of enterprise software systems in our organizations, and we need to make sure that we're able to respond in real time and trigger actions from one system to the next, and bring data and information from one system to the next in a timely fashion so that the needs of the customer can be serviced. So it's important to look at what are those processes, where are those overlaps, and really ask ourselves specifically in today's webinar, why should we integrate Salesforce and Oracle? Excuse the typo there. The integration of Salesforce and Oracle allows us to do things like conduct opportunity to order conversions, which means that when the salesperson has an opportunity that's closed, meaning that they've successfully sold the product, then it needs to convert into an order in the ERP system so that goods can be delivered. Product catalogs need to be synchronized. If we have products that are really the system of record for that may be your PLM or your ERP system, Product Lifecycle Management, PLM, but we also have those products for sale, and we're creating opportunities based on those same products in the CRM system. So the product catalogs need to be synchronized. We need to have awareness of inventory, awareness of credit status, shipping status, the order histories of our customers. We need to be able to use configure, price, quote methodologies and integrate those. So there's a lot of things that need to be integrated. So, you know, the meme that we're sharing from this idea of the need to integrate is, you know, that there's this question always on people's minds: keep calm, but, you know, where's my stuff? You know, we as those that are servicing the customer need to be able to answer questions, and that requires integration. Optimization leads us into things like real-time synchronization and full control of our business rules, you know, with process-driven triggers and alerts, and being able to incorporate and disseminate third-party data. Maybe there's information from LinkedIn or Dun & Bradstreet or Discover.org or Data.com that we want to incorporate into a business process so that we can eliminate duplicates, we can improve data quality, we can use append services, and we also may want to replicate that cloud data locally as well. You know, and so again, in the process of optimization, the meme becomes keep calm, but why are there duplicates? How do we overcome these challenges? Another reason to integrate Oracle ERP systems with Salesforce is to improve the 360-degree view of the customer, to have that full awareness of what's happening within the organization, to avoid manual reentry and errors, build automated recovery processes, and a very big topic, mobile. Mobile integration to your ERP systems and CRM systems is such a big topic that we often talk about it in separate webinars, but we will mention it slightly today. But the meme to take away: keep calm and get mobile. So enterprise integration patterns for Oracle and Salesforce obviously involve very specific technologies. Both Oracle and Salesforce provide APIs, and those APIs allow us to connect to those systems. With eBusiness Suite, there's the Oracle SOA Gateway Web Services, the Oracle XML Gateway, and other methods that are provided to integrate eBusiness Suite. And those are able to expose information from within EBS and bring information into EBS. However, they're in a completely different format than Salesforce's information needs to be in. So there's a process of data transformation, there's a process of communication that needs to take place, and that's obviously the gap that we'll be talking about with Magic's solution and showing you with the demonstration today. PeopleSoft Enterprise has different methodologies than EBS does. Depending upon your version, there may be web service APIs. There was an older technology called the PeopleSoft Component Interface API, and it's capable of calls in Java and C, C++, COM, web services, and then an even older technology known as PeopleSoft Application Messaging that at one point was XML, at an earlier point was just a flat file. So there again are different methods depending upon your version of PeopleSoft Enterprise that need to be intermediated in order to communicate with Salesforce. JD Edwards, depending upon your version, whether you're World 7.3 or in the 9s, whether you're in Enterprise 1, you're going to have either business functions and business services or Z processes for flat file integration, and you'll need an integration platform that can communicate utilizing all of these methods in order to perform the data transformation and the real-time integration and messaging that needs to take place in order to improve the business processes in the ways that we've been discussing. Now for Salesforce, you're going to be able to want to work with Salesforce objects and metadata, perform bulk jobs, do data replication, and perform an internal process within Salesforce known as a lead conversion. So what does that mean specifically in terms of Salesforce? With the Salesforce objects, you need to be able to get the list of objects. You need to be able to get the timestamp information, update the object structures, merge objects, and things of this nature. So this kind of functionality will give you control over the integration back and forth with Salesforce. The metadata is the information that surrounds your use of Salesforce, and you also need the ability to work with the Salesforce metadata to be able to perform basic CRUD operations, which means create, read, update, and delete, and to be able to check on the metadata, deploy the metadata, and so forth as it involves Salesforce. You also will want to be able to work with Salesforce bulk jobs, because the bulk jobs give you the ability to work at scale with your Salesforce integration, so that can become important. And you may have a requirement for replication. Perhaps information being stored in the cloud is not sufficient. You actually want to have it replicated and available on-premise or in a backup environment of your own creation. Perhaps this is for regulatory compliance purposes or for peace of mind, whatever it might be. Those are capabilities that are often required as well. And then finally, as we said, one of those key internal Salesforce tweaks that needs to take place is that idea of the lead conversion, where a set of contact information that's associated to a lead then becomes contact information associated to 3 different entities: an account in Salesforce, a contact, which is a person that works within that account, and then an opportunity, which is a specific sales opportunity related to that account. All 3 of which came from that initial lead, which may have been someone visiting your website, or an email inquiry, or visit at a trade show, or whatever it might be. But those leads, which exist in Salesforce as entities, at one point convert and become accounts, contacts, and opportunities. So to do and accomplish this, we're going to be showing you the Magic XPI integration platform. It's a holistic development and integration environment that includes a wide variety of adapters for well-known enterprise software systems, as well as the necessary technology adapters that simplify the process of dealing with the complexity of the world that's out there, all of the web services communications, and the MQTT adapters for Internet of Things, and the database connectivity, and all the communications protocols, messaging protocols, and so forth. So this is a very powerful platform. It's very scalable. It utilizes in-memory computing techniques for high availability and elastic scalability. And you can see videos about this on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, search for Magic XPI, you'll see quite a number of really interesting videos, including some of the previous webinars that we've offered on this subject. Magic XPI is on App Exchange. We have the Oracle validated integration, as we mentioned in the beginning, and the Magic XPI Studio that you're going to see, we would describe as being very fast and friendly. We take a code-free, drag, drop, and configure approach. It's designed for business and IT users with one skill set to allow you to integrate to multiple applications in your environment. It's based on the Visual Studio interface, so it's very friendly, familiar, intuitive look and feel for many of your IT users, giving an enhanced user experience and improved developer productivity, those developers who are creating those integration flows between your applications that define those business processes and experiences that you want for your customers. As we said, in order to accomplish that, hundreds of pre-built components, adapters, methods, services, and so on. So this is what it's going to look like in the demonstration. You're going to see a toolbox on the left. You're going to see the main pane where the integration flows are designed, and I'm going to really let Ted show that to you, but just emphasizing here, it's drag, drop, and configure, a visual interface, a modern interface that you can use. At the same time, you're going to be able to do data mapping, which is the very specific connections between sources and destinations of information coming from one application to another, do the data transformations through the insertion of expressions in those visual data maps, and then orchestrate and monitor what's going on. So with orchestration, you're able to perform either batch-oriented ETL-like transactions or more modern real-time triggers and web services, or what we might call ESB capabilities, like an enterprise service bus, and the complex business logic, the messaging, the protocols, or the business process management capabilities. Once you have implemented all of that in the studio, you then monitor it, and you have beautiful web-based monitoring that allows you to see your project lists, look at your loads, your usages, your bottlenecks, see where your errors might exist, look at the in-memory computing environment, see how healthy that is all working for you, and again, always being able to keep your users informed of what's going on in your IT environment. You can send email if certain conditions exist and set all of that. The alerts can go to you as an IT manager, or you can even have key users alerted of certain conditions that have occurred. For example, maybe there's a communication outage that is causing Salesforce to be unavailable because your internet service provider is down or something like that. So that breaks the integration, and you have an alert related to the integration. These kinds of things can happen in a real world. So the Magic XPI server that's being monitored and running those processes of integration that you designed, those flows, is very robust because as we said, it's using in-memory computing approaches. So it's a very self-healing technology that's using what's known as active-active clustering right out of the box. And so this in-memory data grid messaging layer means that you have very low latencies, you have guaranteed message delivery, enterprise-grade performance is what I like to call it. And in addition, this server environment is delivering a highly secure environment as well, so that you never have to worry about whether or not your integration platform is capable of supporting your security standards in your organization, because you have all of the encryption, all the authentication, all the transfer protocol encryptions and methodologies supported, user right management, and all of that is all handled relatively effortlessly in the integration platform as well, just to keep everything secure on the up and up. As a result of all that capability, which we're going to show you in a moment, we've had analysts for years and years, Gartner, Forrester, and others, most recently Ovum, talking about the Magic XPI integration platform. Magic XPI suggested that Ovum has suggested that Magic XPI is a good option for organizations that need a flexible and scalable approach to on-premise, cloud, and mobile application integration that doesn't require highly skilled or specialized developers. The integration platform offers the right mix of developer-centric features and enterprise-grade data security, operational management, and failover and automated recovery capabilities, as well as helping reduce infrastructure footprint and total cost of ownership. And when combined with the Magic XPA application platform and MDM solution, it offers a comprehensive approach for developing, integrating, deploying enterprise-grade mobile applications. So as we said, mobile apps is kind of another topic, but it's an important one to point out the relationship here between the two capabilities. Just a brief word about Magic Software. As we said, we do offer that full cycle mobile app capability for end-to-end enterprise mobility through the application platform, the integration platform, the MDM or mobile device management capabilities, as well as all the professional services that you need to support that. As a company, we've been around since 1983. We're traded publicly on the NASDAQ Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol MGIC. Our revenues in 2015 were $176 million. We've got over 1,000 employees, over 24 global offices. We've got customers in more than 50 countries worldwide. We've got over 3,500 global partners, many of whom are experts in Oracle ERP systems, many of whom are experts in Salesforce integration and the implementation of the Salesforce system. And all of that is, of course, supporting literally millions of users worldwide in all kinds of businesses and organizations. We have plenty of case studies that we can offer to you. This Roku Bioscience case study talks about connecting Oracle systems with Magic, so we would invite you to request any of that type of documentation that you're looking for as well following the webinar. Our email is info@magicsoftware.com. Our phone number in the United States is 949-250-1718. You can ask for Angela at extension 259. She knows how to get all this stuff to you very quickly. And you can also, if you're anywhere else in the world, just visit the Magic website at magicsoftware.com. Go to the worldwide locations section of the website, and you'll find offices in countries around the world. And so with that, I'm now going to invite Ted Brennan to share with us the demonstration that he's prepared. So I'm going to make Ted the presenter, and we should in a moment be able to see Ted's desktop as he shares that with us so that we can look at the demonstration. And I do see your desktop, Ted, so I'm going to ask you to please take it away.
All right, well, hopefully you can all hear me as well. And this here is the Magic XP Studio. This is new for 4.5. Those of you who are familiar with the Visual Studio environment, or you've done any kind of a development, this new environment should look very familiar to you. That is intentional. It's more of an integrated development environment that really speeds up our development time, but some of the functionality is the same. As you can see, we got a lot of steps in here with a visual process flow, and that's in place of where you would normally see code in a Visual Studio environment. And what I hear off to the top of the left are what we call flows. So a flow is simply put where we take information from one environment and pass it to multiple environments. So I know we're talking about Salesforce to an ERP, and you can see I have that in front of you, but our code is scalable and reusable. So we are what we call an event-driven utility. So the event can be creating new records, or it could be updating existing records. So for example, in this particular example, I'm taking new accounts from Salesforce and I'm creating customers in JD Edwards Enterprise 1. But the event could be, changing some information as well. So instead of creating new data, the event can be, a customer changes their phone number, or they move and they change their address. That can be the trigger to set off a process flow. So I know we're talking about Salesforce to JDE, and I know there was a slide with SAP there too, but that's also just to illustrate that we can, once we have the information we need, we can go ahead and move data to multiple different places simultaneously. So in this example, I also am going to another flow that goes to SAP, and as you can see in this demo, I have one flow here that's going to JD Edwards Enterprise 1 and one that's going to JD Edwards World. So that's really to illustrate that once we have we can send it to multiple places. So I know today we're talking about ERP, Salesforce to ERP, but we could, if you wanted to implement multiple ERPs, or even an e-commerce environment to say on top of your Salesforce environment, if you decide you want to do sales orders through, say, an e-commerce application, well, part of when you create a sales order, you have to create all the dependencies like customers and things like that in JD anyway. So we can not only create those dependencies on the fly, but if we build a flow that creates collects new sales orders from an e-commerce application, I can reuse this code that's creating customer information and build on that. And so once I have the information, I can send it to multiple different environments as well. So if we implement a PLM application that is managing your item master in your ERP, well, I can send that simultaneously to your ERP and as well as back to Salesforce or your e-commerce application. So it's highly scalable and reusable. So as you can see, like I was saying, this is very visual. It's drag and drop, and it's made up of these things called connectors. So my colleague Glenn talked about these for a little bit. So these connectors not only come with connectivity, or these components rather, not only come with connectivity to these various applications we're talking about, but they also come with the appropriate protocols for the integration. So regardless of what we're talking about, whether it's Salesforce or JDE or SAP, every environment out there has protocols that need to be followed to integrate with your application. Typically you can't write to the data level. You have to follow whatever protocols the particular application requires. So in the case of JD Edwards, you have to work with the business functions. In the case of SAP, you have to work with the BAPIs, so it's whatever. These come with those already available and allows you to utilize them in a method that's appropriate for that particular vendor. So here, as you can see, there's really two different kinds of connectors. Some of them are what we call application specific. So of course we have one for Salesforce, we have some for JDE, we have some for SAP. I'm not going to go through all of them, but what that means is that we've built and tested and developed these according to the standards set forth by that particular vendor. But if we have the opportunity to integrate something we don't have a pre-built connector for, we have some other options too. So we have generic connectors for that kind of scenario. So if there's a item out there that's going out and saying, if there's an application out there that has web services, we can build and consume our own web services with our HTTP generic connector. We have a new functionality with 4.5 coming out where we have WCF client. We can talk to WCF client web services, so we can go ahead and point to that. We have a generic web services connector that allows me to point to any WSDL out there, and all the methods and properties that come with that WSDL will be created. I have a data mapper connector that really allows me to talk to any database in its native language. So I can talk to a SQL database in SQL, I can talk to an Oracle database in Oracle, I can talk to DB2 in DB2. So any kind of queries or joins or elaborate database calls you can do in the application, I can actually do in my data mapper. We can load from a flat file. So the general idea behind XPI is I can take any application and integrate with any other application in a drag and drop code for utility. So now I'm going to switch gears here for a minute, and I'm going to go and show you how that looks to an end user. So this is all seamless to the end user. There's nothing special they need to do to their environment. They don't have to install anything special on their workstations. You don't have to do anything special to the Salesforce or the JDE environment. They would go about their business and do their work like they normally would. So so user acceptance really isn't a factor into what we do. So that you just tell them to go ahead and do what they would normally do. So kind of show you how this works, I'm going to go into my Salesforce and my JDE environment, and this is already should be running. Yes, it is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new address book account in Salesforce, and once that account gets passed over to JDE, it's going to create the account in JDE, and it's going to pass the JDE ID back to Salesforce. So here, just to show you all nice folks, I don't have any tricks up my sleeve. I didn't pre-build this integration or this sync right here, and I'm going to do a search on this value, and I'm going to call it SFC to JDE with today's date, and of course it's not in there yet. And I'm going to do display phone, display address, but of course there's nothing in there yet because I haven't created yet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And again, I'm just Ted the sales guy creating a new account. First, I got to sign back in. Timed out a little bit there. Okay, so create a new account, and this is just going to be some generic test data like you see in the movies. I'm going to put in a test phone number. Obviously, it's a fake phone number. The demo system, I'm going to Enterprise 1, so I'm going to leave that there. Just say TED test, and this is some Chrome. And I'm going to say, I know it's not correct, but I'm going to copy it to the billing address. Okay, that all looks good. And when I sync this over, the sync bank's got to be set, and my JDE ID is going to be passed into this index value. So in this particular example, when I click Save, that's going to be the trigger to JDE, to the XPI to say, go ahead and sync this record. So like I said, in this particular example, the sync was done from creating new records, but it could be updating existing records as well. So as you can see, there's nothing special I had to do. There's no magic button or anything like that. I just went ahead my business as I normally would, and here's an example of what we call a real-time sync as opposed to a batch sync. So here I got my new JDE ID, my sync flag has been set, and when I go ahead and do a query on that value, now as you can see it's in JD Edwards Enterprise 1. Okay, so as you can see, that was seamless to an end user. It ran as a Windows service in the background, a very small digital footprint, and I'll explain a little bit more about how we work in production later. So that's an example of how we work typically. No user intervention, everything runs behind the scenes. And what was once in one environment is now in another. So a good idea a trigger to see where we would fit into an environment is anytime you have a place where you're doing dual data entry with multiple applications, that's really our sweet spot for doing integrations. So now I'm going to switch gears again, and I'm going to go back into this solution in our design studio. I'm going to show you how we built this integration, show you how easy it is to use. So over here, I have my first flow where I'm grabbing data from Salesforce. I'm passing it to an intermediary variable, and then I'm creating the new record in JDE using the JDE connector. So the first part would be using our Salesforce connector. So I'm going to go in here and show you how we configure that. So all of our connectors do what we call schema discovery. So if you have custom data points or custom index fields in your environment, that's not a problem for us at all because we work at the data level, and every time we use one of these connectors, we do a schema discovery back to the environment and get all the data points and all the index fields. So if I'm doing a query on the account object and I'm returning all the fields, but just to kind of show you, if I click on this ellipsis and I go into these fields, I'm going to get every index field at that data level. So all through down here, and as you can see, those of you familiar with what goes on behind the scenes in Salesforce, some of these are common to every Salesforce environment. They're the built-in index fields, but all these _Cs that you see here, as you know, these are custom fields. So I will have all of those. So this really not only speeds up your integration, it helps you manage your integrations better as well. So in comparison to a point-to-point integration, as those of us that have done that know, everything works fine, the first time if you did everything correctly, but as we all know, anybody who uses Salesforce or ERPs, there's always, some changes here and there. So if you add new index fields or you add new data points and they need to be accounted for in your integration, well, that essentially breaks your point-to-point integration. You got to go back in, you got to point to your resources, you got to change your functions and add more variables or remove variables, you got to recompile. All I have to do is open this project, refresh the XSD, and I'll refresh the schema, and I'll get the new mapping, and I'll be able to connect those and recompile and redeploy in a matter of minutes. So that really speeds up your integration and allows you to manage them a lot better as well. So in this example, I'm doing a query against new accounts and I'm passing them to an XML variable, and that is typically how we do integrations. We don't necessarily go directly from one environment to another. What we will typically do is pass it to an intermediary variable because that allows us to perform transformations and to manipulate that data. So if I have to concatenate some values, if there is a last name and a first name field, I need to pass that to one name field, I can go ahead and do that. I can transform the dates. I can get really elaborate with some of the tools I have. I can get so far as taking the full SOAP XML. I can strip the header information. I can pass the body as variables and pass that and reconstruct that as well. But the reason we do this too is it allows us to build out and manage the integration better. So in this case I'm going directly from accounts to customers rather, but maybe this is a sales order and I need to do some intermediary lookups and build out this XML and before I pass that on to create a sales order in an ERP. So that allows me to manage that and orchestrate that integration a lot better too, so I can do some validations and data syncs on that well and make sure everything is built properly before I pass that on to the target application. So I'm going to cancel out of this and I'm going to go into JDE. So here's where my JDE connector, and I'm using the address book master business functions. But the main thing I want to show you is where we do most of our work, and that's our data mapper. Okay. So in this case, the data mapper is being used in conjunction with the JDE connector. And here I have my XML variable information that I took from Salesforce, and I'm passing it to the address book master in JDE. But I have some options, when it comes to the data mapper, I got a number of different options here. New for 4.5, we have native support for JSON code, so I can map JSON code if I have the proper, with the proper schema. I can make this an XML variables. I can call another database, and so I can actually do this with multiple sources and multiple destinations as well. But to show you how easy this tool is, as you can see, there's some mappings here. So if I want to pass the information from here over to here, it's that simple. Okay, now I have a couple of things I can do to this data. I can put some conditions on it here, but 90%, a lot of what we do is we do our validations on the data by manipulating this a little bit. So here I have a little tool that allows me to have access to a variety of different VB.NET time functions that allows me to validate this data. So, I can, it says concatenate here. There's one that does concatenation, but, we concatenate strings like you would anywhere else. You would just, do typical what's in VB.NET. You would, add your, put it in single quotes and then add your ampersand symbol. It supports that method as well. I can manipulate the date time format. So here's a good example of one we use a lot. So here's get date. This allows me to take a date time variable that's coming through with both the date and time. What it allows me to do is it allows me to separate the date value and allows me to manipulate the date value from a traditional Gregorian date to, if necessary, as you can see, depending on which switch I use, I can pass that either in traditional date or I can pass that as a Julian date like some applications require. So this is one of the numerous different ways that we can manipulate this data before we pass it along. So, and the idea behind XPI, this or anything else, here is we give you the tools that allow you to have someone at the business analyst level the same functionality and power that a developer would have. So all these tools and all this drag and drop method, and I'm showing you this to show you, this is easy to use for someone at the business analyst level, and they can have the same tools and provide the same value in here as a regular programmer would. So you don't need to be a programmer to use this. So you have your functions, you have your variables, and you can just go ahead and pass that on accordingly. So another thing I want to talk about is how we work in production typically. So here, let me go back to So here, I want to talk a little bit about how we typically run in production. So in a typical traditional point-to-point integration, you simply have a DLL that's just sitting on a server someplace, but you really have no visibility on what's going on with that integration. And if that DLL or that becomes corrupted, the server goes down, that ruins your integration. Well, when we typically run in production, we run as a small Windows service in the background that has a very small digital footprint, and we utilize a technology called in-memory data grid that allows us to build. It allows us to do two things. One, it allows us to pass a significant amount of data between two applications very quickly. So what in-memory data grid allows us to do is temporarily expand an internal server's RAM to pass large amounts of data back and forth. And we have customers that are doing sales order processing 24 hours a day, and they've tested us against their Black Friday scenarios and things like that, and they're all very impressed with how quick things work, especially against traditional point-to-point integration. And since we have a small digital footprint, in-memory data grid also comes with built-in active-active clustering, which allows us to take advantage of the fact that we typically deploy to 2 or more servers and have the gigaspaces spaces on different servers that allows us to build failover, so if one server goes down, the other one will just pick up the slack. Whereas, like I said, in a traditional point-to-point integration, if one server goes down, it go ahead and if your DLL goes down or the server goes down, it ruins your whole integration. We're with our built-in active-active clustering, the integrity of your integration is maintained. So while I was talking about that, what's in front of you is what we call our monitoring tool. So this allows us to monitor what's going on with your licenses as well as your in-memory data grid as well. So I can go back and forth with different views here, and the data grid shows me the space that Gigaspace is managing in this environment, so it tells me the health of the space. If I go to all my projects, I can see the projects that are running, and I can separate the ones that are running from the ones that are one not running. I only have one connected right now. We've really improved this this data flow here in this new environment. I can actually go ahead and manage different flows here and see what's running at any one given time. This is a very powerful tool that allows us to pass applications. I can not only pass metadata that's being synced between applications, but in view that, I can also pass application-specific error messages to this monitoring tool. So if your Salesforce or your ERP is passing a specific error message, I can go ahead and notify the administrator, pass this to the actual message and the metadata back to the monitor. So it really gives an administrator more visibility of what's going on in their environment. Okay, so Glenn, looks like we have about 15 minutes left. I've shown everything I was planning on showing. I think it's time for questions.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Ted. We would remind you that you can enter your questions into the chat box, please, and send them to the organizers and panelists, and that means Ted and I, and we'll be happy to get to those. As you're typing those in, you probably need to know that Ted and I have a blue ticket each sitting on our desk. It's a special day here at Magic Software. The Habit food truck is downstairs, and so the reason I was probably talking a little faster than usual is because I knew that the faster I went, the sooner Ted and I could get down there to that Habit food truck. Those of you who aren't familiar with the Habit, it's a wonderful charbroiled burger bistro type operation, and they got a cool food truck here today, so we're excited about that. Anyway, hopefully that gave you a chance to enter in some questions. Let's see what those are looking like right now. Just scrolling up here. First question, Ted. When you use the directory scanner, what is the scan interval? Ooh, very specific question.
Excellent question. The scan interval is whatever you want the scan interval to be. So we handle the intervals by a different utility we call a scheduler. The nice thing is we actually have a new functionality that allows us to create schedulers as part of, and let me go into the settings. Let's see if I have any set up here. So I have one scheduler that's, looks like I have one for every 30 seconds and one for every 20 seconds. So the nice thing about that is before you had to set up a different scheduler for every flow. But a lot of times people are using the same scheduler, the same interval for multiple flows. So before we had to create a different one for every flow, but now we set it up as an external service, so we just grab the one we want. So, it can be daily, weekly, monthly. It can even go every 1 second if you so desire.
Great, thank you, Ted. Next question, can we use Magic to receive a message in JMS and send it in MSMQ?
Absolutely. So we have a new, I think I know what you're talking about. We have a new MQTT connector that allows us to work with.
I'm sorry, it was MSMQ, so Microsoft Message Queue connector and the JMS, the Java Message Service connector. I think that's what that's referring to here. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yes, we have both of those right here. Misunderstood the question. I'm so excited about some of this newer functionality for 4.5 that I forget some of the existing technology that we already.
No, you're thinking about the Habit. I know where your head's at.
So yeah, so the messaging we can do MSMQ and the JMS as well. So we have pre-built connectors that allows us to handle that.
So basically, then you just do a data mapping between them, right? And
sure.
And you can take anything in and send anything out. Okay, makes sense. And then another question, how would you use a third-party NCOA validator? I guess that means National Change of Address validator, REST or SOAP?
Well, good question. We could do either one, but if I'm not familiar with that particular functionality, but if it comes via REST, we'd use REST. If it comes via SOAP, we use SOAP. Typically, SOAP is more structured, so a lot of people like that more, but we could use whichever one. I believe that comes with both.
Okay. What versions of JDE does the App Exchange Adapter support? We are running World A73 and One World XE B7333. Sorry. So what versions of JDE does it support?
Well, when you say the App Exchange.
Well, I think because they're doing Salesforce integration via the App Exchange. So basically,
well, the Salesforce
from A73 World on up to the latest version of Enterprise One, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. So, and that's separate from the Salesforce. The Salesforce would be handled separately through the Salesforce connector.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. And let's see, did I miss anything here? I'm looking in two different places because some were entered in the question box and some were entered in the chat box. Sorry about that. No, it looks like that's all of the questions. So
All
I
right.
appreciate it very much, Ted, and I thanks everyone for joining us today on the webinar. If you have additional follow-up questions, again, the email is info@magicsoftware.com. The phone number is 949-250-1718, extension 259. Our users conference is coming up in San Diego, September 12th to the 14th. So talk to your rep about that. If you're interested in attending, we would definitely like to accommodate that and make it possible for you to attend. So please just give us a shout out and see what magic we can make happen for that. So once again, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, Ted.
All right. Thank you, Glenn.
Bye, everybody.